Alright, so some people have been asking me how and where do I get my keyboards, and I like to point them to a number of different resources. You could go on online vendors like drop.com or KBD fans, or you could also look at the secondhand market, such as the subreddit r/mech market, to look for a keyboard deal. But sometimes the best deal is found out in the wild. So here I am looking for a keyboard, and alright, here it is. This is the KBD75v2 from KBD fans, and it is what I would call the aluminum standard. The reason I say that is because this keyboard is a really good benchmark in terms of what you get for the price, and can be used as a good comparison point between other custom mechanical keyboard kits. The quality of this kit really sets the standard for what you should be getting at this mid-range price point. Speaking of price, at the time of writing this review, you can grab the KBD75v2 kit off of KBD Fans' website for the price of $159 US, though keep in mind that you will need to factor in the price of key switches, keycaps, and third-party stabilizers. You will also need to factor in taxes and shipping. In total, after buying all of the necessary parts for a complete build, I ended up spending around $255 US for the KBD75v2 build, though your mileage may vary depending on what switches, keycaps, and stabilizers you get. The keyboard kit itself includes an anodized aluminum case, the PCB, which is a soldered-only PCB, not hot swap, an anodized aluminum plate, OEM stabilizers, and an acrylic mid-layer. All of the screws needed for assembly are also included. The acrylic mid-layer is a necessary part of the build and is used to feature the RGB underglow built into the PCB, which is compatible with the QMK firmware as well as the keyboard software called VIA for things like rebinding keys or creating macros. The RGB underglow wraps all the way around the keyboard, and there's a variety of lighting modes that you can switch to, including the ability to disable them entirely. The keyboard is very heavy due to its aluminum construction and can be made even heavier with the addition of an optional brass weight that can be attached to the bottom, albeit at an additional cost. With that being said, I would not recommend this keyboard for anyone who is looking for something portable, as its weight and size makes it too cumbersome to even lift off my desk, never mind taking it back and forth to another workspace. The KBD75v2 features what is known as a 75% layout, which provides direct access to the alphanumerics, the function row, and the navigation cluster. That being said, you can always rebind the keys to suit your individual preferences through the QMK firmware or the VIA keyboard software. Like everything in the custom keyboard world, there's more than one way to design a layout. The 75% layout featured on the KBD75v2 has both the function row as well as the navigation cluster directly adjacent to the alphanumerics. You might find some other keyboards with the same form factor, but they might be designed with a bit of space between the different sections of the keyboard, which some might find more aesthetically pleasing, or even might help their hands find the different sections of the keyboard easier. In the end, it comes down to individual preference, and you'll have to see for yourself what works best for you. Just keep in mind that, aside from the keys available to you on your keyboard, the biggest impact that size and layout of a keyboard will have on your day-to-day life is the amount of space the keyboard will take up on your desk, which in turn will affect how much desk real estate you will have for your mouse. So I tend to recommend smaller form factors for gamers who frequently play FPS games, as the smaller keyboards will give you more room to move your mouse around. So the assembly process is pretty straightforward. There are only a few things that will stand out from the other keyboards that I've reviewed. One is that the case comes in multiple pieces, rather than being one solid part like the plank or Prionic. And the other part is that the PCB requires that you use a soldering iron to solder the key switches in place. A lot of beginners will probably be scared of soldering, but I can attest that it's a lot easier than it looks, and personally, I found it quite fun, even on my first try. If you want me to make a basic keyboard soldering tutorial, let me know in the comments below. The different pieces of the case require a bit of manual alignment to make sure the separate layers are properly aligned, especially since the acrylic mid layer has a lot of wiggle room within the case, but once it's all screwed together, it should stay in place. Let's take a closer look at the keyboard fully assembled. So the final fit and finish of the KBD75v2 is completely standard. While the materials provided in the kit are of very high quality, the manufacturing tolerances of the completed product is not the greatest, and I think that's totally acceptable, since the board is offered at a fair price in relation to the amount of polish put into the end product. For one thing, the case for the KBD75v2 can be padded with a sound dampening foam to modify the acoustic properties of the keyboard. This explains why the cutout for the USB-C port is so large, basically to the point where it makes it very difficult to plug in without looking. This cutout is made extra tall in order to take into account the fact that the sound dampening foam might change the height at which the PCB sits at. Overall, I'd give it a B to B+ grade. The finished build is nice, but is missing that extra attention to the little details that set the higher end customs apart from the rest. Even with that lack of polish, I still think the quality is well in line with the price. So, in conclusion, I think the KBD75v2 does a really good job of setting the bar for what a custom keyboard should be, and that if you want something higher quality, you should expect to pay more, and if you're looking for something in a lower budget, you should expect the quality to be lower as well. For me personally, the 75% layout of the KBD75v2 is somehow both too big for me while also feeling cramped at the same time. There were a handful of times where I went to reach for the backspace key and ended up mashing my fingers into some of the other keys situated in the top corner of the keyboard, and while having access to the nav cluster is nice on occasion, for my use case, their full potential was never truly met. That being said, I think a lot of people would find this keyboard to be exactly what they wanted, a keyboard that offers all of the same functionality of a 10 keyless in a more compact form factor. And if that's what you're looking for, then I think the KBD75v2 is a great fit. So that wraps it up. If you enjoyed this review, leave a like, and if you want to know when the next video is out, make sure to subscribe. See you in the next one.